Hey everyone, I know this post is a little bit late, so kind of doubt any of you guys will see it, but I felt really passionately about the information that was presented in week 12, just because of a few things like in my own education growing up, and as well as what I'm working on with my district right now. So I wanted to be sure to respond to this post. The first question for this week, like three obstacles that really stood out to me when it comes to women and minorities in STEM education. Kind of the big things I came up with, the first one I felt like was lack of support. So when I was in high school, I was the last student in my high school at the time. They had cut our engineering pathway at the time, and it's back now, thankfully, but I was the last student to go through that program before they cut it for quite a few years. And I was the only girl. The whole 4 years that I was in there, all of my engineering classes, my physics classes, I was the only female in that class, and my teacher was male as well, and thankfully he was very, very supportive, and he knew what my goals were to finish that pathway, and he helped me along with that. But I felt a very strong lack of support because all of my science teachers were all male, physics teachers, chemistry teachers. I did have a few female math teachers, but I felt a very strong lack of support in that field. And I feel like that's still an ongoing thing. I look at the school where I teach now, and it's kind of the same demographic. We have one female math teacher and one a female biology teacher, but other than that, the rest of our math department, science department, our advanced courses, they're all male teachers, which they're fabulous teachers, but I know sometimes our female students struggle with feeling that lack of support and that lack of representation. Like the second TED Talk mentioned, we wait way too long to start into STEM education. When girls are getting the message by second grade that math and science are for boys, then we need to be reaching out to those girls beforehand, and all those students really. But I think one of the best things we can do is give them early exposure to this, and that can be as early as kindergarten and even as early as preschool. Now, obviously, they're probably not going to know what STEM means at that point or the importance of it, but they can start getting their hands dirty, both figuratively and literally, and getting hands-on experience with this to realize, hey, I'm really interested in this. I might have some skills in this, and catch them early to where they don't ever come to the point that I have a lack of support. I was never taught this. I never experienced it. So lack of support starting early, I think, is important. And then, of course, the biggest thing is just that implicit bias, that we kind of maybe inadvertently send the message that this is a boys' field. Even now, I think of things I think of like a rocket scientist, and the first thing that pops into my mind is a guy who's a rocket scientist. Or I think of great mathematicians, and the first thing that pops into my mind are these famous men that were mathematicians. And so one thing I really liked about that TED Talk is it mentioned both men and women were both equally bad at this implicit bias, and we need to work really hard on changing that mindset. One thing that we're doing right now in my school district, I'm working with 3 other teachers to develop an engineering course in junior high for 9th graders that is targeted solely to girls, where we handpick a handful of girls to get into this engineering class. And we're trying to kind of change that stereotype from it being like the nerdy class and the gaming class, because that's what it's seen as right now. And the girls have told us, I don't take that class because the people in there are nerdy and weird and awkward. To change it from this nerdy class to being a class focused on design and development, where kids get to work with students in elementary school and families in the community, identify a need and design a product to meet that need. So they're working on all these STEM skills, but they're feeling this helpful aspect, and that they're doing good. They're not just building rocket ships, but they're doing good in their community, and they get to see the outcomes from that. The other question, what can we do to intervene here? I think, like I mentioned earlier, exposing kids to STEM education as early as possible. If anybody's a parent or going to be a parent in the future, I think that happens at home long before their school age. But also a big thing I've noticed to be helpful is partnerships. Partnerships, one with community. For example, my child development class just went on a field trip yesterday to a water birth center, and they got to see all the technology that was used and different things that happened there, which was really great exposure. But also partnering with our school counselors. I know we make it a point once a year to visit the school that's the grades below us as they register to come into our school, and we work with the school counselors to provide a presentation that tells them these are the things we do in our class. And we have the counselors attend that meeting. So when students have questions, the counselors know how to answer those questions. Because I know in my current school, our counselors, they don't always know what's going on in our classroom. They read the course description, tell kids, okay, like, have fun, but they can't answer questions and they don't know what's going on in our school. So I think those partnerships with community and especially our school counselors are, for me right now, those are the two biggest things I can do to support and intervene in my own program.